Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Development Day 2. I know that you guys were probably thinking at the beginning of this week, man, there's just this void in my life. I don't know what it is. And then after seeing my beautiful face right now, you're thinking, I know what it is. I haven't seen Mr. Hall. So here I am to brighten your day or to ruin it. We'll find out. Um, I figured I would make this seem as close to class as possible. So here I am drinking my coffee with my Star Wars mug. Cheers. Just delicious. Day 2 development is I'd probably say my favorite. There's a lot of really awesome stuff in this. I love teaching the stuff on attachment, on social bonding, Harry Harlow and the monkey experiments, Mary Ainsworth and the strange situation. So if you've taken intro, this is really interesting stuff. Most people really enjoy this stuff. But what I'm going to be doing is I get a chance to tie in 2 lectures into one. So this video may be kind of long, so bear with me. We're also going to be talking about Lawrence Kohlberg and the theory of moral reasoning, which is also a really interesting topic. So this is definitely a good day of instruction as far as just relevancy. This is stuff that applies to your life all the time. I mean, most of this chapter, all of this chapter is really applying to your life. But for me, I feel like this one is one of the most relevant days. So I think you guys will enjoy today. So one of the big things, as my thing is not clicking, there we go. In the book, if you guys haven't looked at the first slide, or I probably should have posted it, I'm looking at the book on pages, looks like 195 through it looks like 207? 208. So 195 to 208 in your book. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. So please check that out if you haven't already. So the biggest thing that I want to do when we start with this is this idea of attachment and stranger danger. If you don't know what stranger danger is, just go to Storybook Land come November and December and watch some children get taken from their parents and placed on an old man's lap. Spoiler alert for you guys, it's not Santa. Actually, Peyton just found this out the other day, that there is no Santa Claus. And so the cat's out of the bag with our 4th grader, which I think I was in 4th grade when I found out there was no Santa Claus. Some of you, I'm sorry if you just figured that out right now. That's life. So Carter still believes in it, so we're going to try and keep it interesting for Carter Man. But whatever. So if you ever see a kid sit on Santa's lap that has some serious trust issues, usually it's going to culminate in kids crying and begging for mercy and wanting to be taken away from Santa. But really one of the biggest things that, when you look at this and this separation anxiety issue, you kind of want to see that. If you've got a 2-year-old that gets sat on Santa's lap and just looks at him and is totally okay, there could be some issues with that. Not all kids. Some kids have temperaments that are just, very cool and collected and relaxed. But for the most part, you want to see separation anxiety. Attachment is obviously, anytime a kid develops an emotional tie with a parent. And if you think about it, what it's really doing from a survival point of view is it's showing distress, and it's showing the parent that there is this bond, that this kid desires you over a creepy Santa Claus or whatever. But to tie it into Piaget and stuff from last week, it's based off of this idea that Piaget talked about with assimilation. So assimilation being kids have developed schemas in their brains. If you guys remember me talking about that, they don't have a ton of schemas in their head, and so they're putting individuals' faces they're assimilating that with other faces, and a kid is quickly realizing that the face that I'm seeing, if they're seeing it for a first time, in this instance, Santa Claus, it doesn't fit my schema for people that I'm supposed to be comfortable with. And so the direct result is for me to freak the bleep out and want to be removed from that situation as quickly as possible. And so that's what you're seeing right here with separation anxiety. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to tie in Piaget to the topics of attachment. Now, some of the most, let me move my screen down right there. There we go. One of the most important experiments when it comes to attachment has to be Harry Harlow and his monkey experiments. So to give you kind of a backstory with this, when it came to attachment theories in the 40s and 50s, I just I just listened to a podcast on this, and I thought this was so fascinating. The establishment, when it came to parenting, actually said that you need to stay away from your kids. And what I mean by that is when a kid is growing up, it actually pays the kid more of a benefit if you actually deny them physical touch. So avoiding them is actually better for their growth. That, no joke, was the research back then. That was the way that people dealt with weaning their kids and parenting their children. And that's just, it's absolutely false. And what we obviously know that that's false because of Harry Harlow and his obscure and now deemed unethical monkey experiments. So, like I said, with pre-Harlow, especially with animals, but you could correlate that with humans. Infant animals, and like I said, infants in general, the reason they become attached to their parents is because those parents provide them with life support. So survival instincts kick in, and an infant is going to seek out a mother not because there's any attachment with it. If there is an attachment, it's because that mother provides me with a food source. That mother provides me with a roof under my head. That mother provides me with, whatever is deemed essential to survive. And so pre-Harlow, really it's just talking about the survival instincts. Now, when it talks about with nourishment, when I mention nourishment, I'm really just talking about this idea of just survival. So whatever helps the animal or the human survive and thrive. And so that's what you have pre-Harlow. Now, a big term that you need to understand with this is this idea of contact comfort. Now, contact comfort is what you develop when you develop a close tie or a, if I want to quote my man Carl Rogers, an unconditional positive regard. So you develop close contact with a human at birth when you make those connections with your mother or your father. And anytime a baby is crying and those specific individuals pick up the child and hold them, if the kid is calmed down by those parents, then that would be considered a contact comfort. Contact with those caregivers provides the infant with a calming sense of well-being. And so what's really interesting about contact comfort is you can actually generalize that to anything, really. If you talk about a security blanket, I didn't have a security blanket growing up, but I had stuffed animals that I viewed as my contact comfort. So anytime a kid walks around with a stuffed animal that provides them, it de-stresses them, you would consider that their contact comfort. Carter's contact comfort now is kind of a stuffed animal, but when he was a baby, it was pacifiers or binkies. Those were absolutely his contact comfort, and he would, when he was in his crib, and this is just the weirdest thing, we would sprinkle binkies all around his crib because he would roll all over the place, and he still rolls all over the place. He falls off the bed all the time. Hence why we have a railing system for my 6-year-old. It's ridiculous. Side story. So we'd sprinkle these pacifiers all around him. And so he would just roll and he'd grab a pacifier and he'd put it in his mouth. Well, he started putting them on his hands. It was really freaking weird. It kind of reminded me of Thanos in the Infinity Gauntlet. And he'd have these pacifiers on his hand and he would sit there and he would go like this, put one on his mouth, put another one in his mouth, another one, and another one, and we'd see the baby cam and just die laughing that he was just so attached to it. It was kind of a struggle trying to remove the pacifiers from him because you can't have those forever. But that's essentially what we're talking about with contact comfort. Now, what Harlow did was develop an experiment via these tiny monkeys. They're called rhesus monkeys. And what he would do is, my screen just froze, I think. There we go. He would, as soon as the monkeys were born, he would immediately snatch them from mom, which is unethical, point number one. He wanted to provide the monkeys with zero attachment to anything. He wanted it to be completely created in a laboratory under his settings. And so these poor baby monkeys were immediately taken from mom at birth and raised in a cage in virtual isolation. So they had no contact with other animals except for maybe just in the lab. But in their cage, they were by themselves. And so what they did is they then put a